I shook his hand, and it was like a dead fish. And he said, boy, that's a dead fish. Never shake another man's hand like that again.
Right.
And I haven't since. Right? He's like, let me show you. And you're supposed to know that. You're supposed to understand eye contact.
Job of a dad. Teach us things.
These are things that are not curriculum. Right. They're not podcasts. They're not books. It's the presence of a father.
Oh, that's right. Well, guys, welcome back to season 2 of the Grimke Podcast. Certainly excited to have both of you here. Bryan, Laughlin, Chancellor, CEO.
Glad to be here again, as always.
Grimke, good to have you here. Michael Foster.
Good to be here.
Yeah. Folks don't know Michael. He is the pastor of East River Church in Batavia, Ohio. Executive with Maddox. Also wrote a book that my sons appreciated. I appreciated. I know several men appreciated.
I appreciate it.
It's good to be a man. So
it is good.
We've had you in town for the intensive, which has been fantastic.
Yeah, been a great time.
Good. We had our seminary guys here Wednesday night, had guys from the church out, had a packed house. They certainly enjoyed what you had to say from Proverbs about men, which I know is somewhat related to a sermon series you're currently in.
It's wanted to get a little extra mileage out of that. So crammed 5 sermons into one.
That's just being a pastor.
I haven't prepped a new sermon in like the last 5 years. So just been remixing everything
That's right.
I had before. I'm kidding, of course, just for the record.
What they tell us in high school when they were doing the environmental stuff, like use, reuse, recycle. I forget what they beat into my head.
My high school was very wasteful. We had none of that.
All the environmental stuff.
That's right. Yeah, no, not so much.
Which is fantastic.
I'm working on it.
You wrote that book, came out in 2021.
Yep, that's right. Yep.
Which was an interesting time for the country, an interesting time thinking through everything gender, much less masculinity. So I know books don't come out of a vacuum. What led to you writing that?
So I got into the ministry way too young. I was like 18 when I was a junior high youth pastor.
Okay.
Wow.
And then did a bunch of community Bible studies that grew really large for little house Bible studies, like 100 people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In Cincinnati?
Yeah, in Cincinnati, all around, really Indiana, Kentucky, Cincinnati. Had this little kind of like revival in the late 90s where a lot of high school students were converting. And some of those people remain good friends, and one is my wife. So so then I became a youth pastor and was a youth pastor for many years.
Okay.
And I got married pretty young, but some of those guys didn't get married. Mm-hmm. And some of their little brothers didn't get married, but they knew who I was, and they'd reach out to me with their problems, trying to find a wife, trying to navigate different churches on issues of sexuality or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I was hearing their frustrations all the time.
Yeah.
I'm kind of the last of a generation. So Em and I didn't have social media.
Right.
We didn't have cell phones, and
Which is all 3 of us at the table.
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
Last of the analogs.
I had a Nokia flip phone. I remember when I first got that thing.
I didn't get a computer till I was 23. So it was 2003. So I'd have to I wrote all my papers in the computer lab in college.
Oh, yeah, the computer lab.
That's right. And I don't remember, Google might have just been coming out, but I mean, that was like Dogpile or Metacrawler or something.
We were still dialing up.
Yeah.
Internet Explorer.
So AIM came out around that time. That was maybe really the first social media. It was something like that. And there was a real shift not long after I got out of high school in men and women. And I think it comes down to the internet, comes down to eventually screens, to dating websites. All that just like shifted in a really massive way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That I only had our generation, kind of the Oregon Trail generation, that 78 to 82 sort of people where
a lot of dysentery.
That's right.
We had a lot
died of dysentery.
Trying to get down old Snake River, but
that's right.
But we had analog, but not fully analog. We were coming into the early days of high-speed internet, so the internet didn't scare us. We were downloading stuff on Napster from Russia or whatever.
Right.
So it wasn't a foreign world, but we also didn't grow up. We didn't have high-def porn. We didn't have any of that. No. You had to go buy a magazine or a video. It was hard to get it. It was behind those saloon doors at some mom and pop rental store, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So that wasn't easy. We didn't get corrupted that way. We didn't know what the girls looked like in the other town unless we're driving over there with our friends or on a sports team. We just kind of had our community, our world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was a simpler world in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so that world disappeared really quick.
Fast. Right.
And for anyone older than us, it's really hard for them to see that because they were in their careers already. They grew up in a very analog world. They were already married. So they were kind of like out of that. So these guys who were reaching out to me because I was their youth pastor and just a few years ahead of them were telling me how the pastors they were talking to were basically telling them to man up, which if you're a man, you should man up. You really should.
Not bad advice.
But these guys actually were working hard. Some of them were very handsome, in shape, one was a PhD and also pretty high up in the Navy.
Sure.
At a very young age.
Yeah.
Knew how to dance, knew how to play instruments, all this stuff. Couldn't get a woman.
He had all the riz as the
Zoomers would say.
My daughters tell me never to say that. So sorry, girl. Sorry about that.
What makes you say it all the more, right?
That's right. That's right.
The more you tell me not to say something, the more
I understand how dads work. Yes.
So as that was happening, I was listening to these younger men come up and tell me they're dealing with these different issues. I was prepping a podcast on masculinity in the late teens, right? And that's about the time that Jordan Peterson exploded onto the scene.
Right. It's 12 rules.
And then I was being introduced to like these online pickup artists, only because young men were telling me about these guys.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why in the world are they listening to pickup artists? I was able to deduce what that is, like picking up women.
Right.
And here's the art of how you do it, right?
Yeah.
So I went and watched a bunch of that stuff just to see what they're talking about. Not like extremely scandalous stuff. It's like within the YouTube's terms of service. But and then I watched Peterson. Peterson did not ever appeal to me, honestly. He always seemed like he was scared of the world. Like the world's a big, cruel place, and you just got to buck up and go out there.
Wasn't a Canadian bias or anything.
Right.
Yeah. I didn't think he's a beta male. I think he was always weak. I think he's a weak man that he had to force courage into himself.
Yeah.
Right. So he stood up in Canada at a critical moment.
Right.
And I give him, but like the world to him is a scary place. He always sounded like a child holding to his mother's leg to me.
Sure.
And I'm like, well, no, the world was made for me. Right. God made it for me. It's mine to go conquer. That's fun. Let's go conquer it.
Yeah, he's working on different presuppositions.
Yeah,
for sure.
very much
Right.
so. And
Yes.
He had a nervous breakdown because, well, that's a whole other discussion anyhow.
Sure.
So he's coming into his own. All these guys are talking about what would eventually blow up and become the Manosphere, which is a collection of blogs, podcasts, streams, whatever, that are talking about male sexuality issues in and against feminism. So they recognize feminism as an active problem, which is a little bit different than a lot of the church-based ministries, which are saying they're taking an idea of male headship and where men are responsible for the world. We are. It's hard. But responsibility does not equal blame.
Right.
So whatever happens in your house, you are the captain of that ship. So you're responsible for it. That doesn't mean you cause your wife to disobey or your kids to disobey, but you must deal with it. You must be the leader.
Yeah.
So a lot of those men's ministry, I always tell people, are women's ministry with bacon. Right.
Okay.
Guys sit around in circles. Let's talk about your feelings. Well, guys will talk about their feelings, but not in circles.
That's right.
It'll be at the baseball game. It'll be why they golf or why they fish or something to that effect. Guys talk, women talk this way. Men talk that way. Right. Men are side to side. Women are face to face. Men talk as they do something. And so a lot of these men ministry had a lot of old world assumptions. And it's sort of like, you know what to do, man up. But what happens when you have no fault divorce for 2 to 3 decades at that point?
Right.
When you have a whole generation drugged up on methylphenidate and Adderall, you have a school system that favors girls because girls are a little more subtle on the front end than boys are, and they're easier. So that let's just all make them act like girls. So boys now, the problem with boys is they're not girls. So boys are defective girls.
Yeah, that's right.
So you have that going on. You really have feminism exploding at this point.
Yeah.
Then you have the advent of internet porn, which is devastating to men. Then you have the advent of social media and dating sites, which is devastating to women. Then you have video games. Now, I remember SOCOM was a video game where you could like do missions together on your computer and you could talk to each other. I was like, that's awesome.
Right.
And I would have done it had I not been working my career. I was just too busy to do it at that point. I was already married. But had I been born just a few years later, that probably would have been a big part of my life.
That's right.
And so all that stuff's coming. It's like all swirling around. And in a lot of the older generations, ideas about the world are just not true anymore.
Right.
Like I don't think they understand how bad the women have gotten. The women have caught up with the men, right? Men, the idea that men were dogs and cheating and all that sort of stuff. Sure. Yeah. But the women are doing it now too.
Right.
Right. I think they got over sexualized through, social media. And then slowly women have been digesting more and more pornography. Right. That's the quickest growing group. Yeah. So their idea of what they should be to get a high quality man is this sex object, right? They sexualize themselves. Yeah. So all this stuff's happening and these guys are looking for answers to the church. But the church has got an androgynous that, look, Joe Thorne said this once. Maybe you've heard of him. But he was teaching at a men's conference in my town. And he said, look, the Bible doesn't talk about, how did he put it? Basically, look, this is a men's conference, but really what the Bible calls us to be is just holy Christians or something to that effect. Uh-huh. As if there is a difference between being a man and a woman. There is male piety and female piety. It's gendered in that sense. Sure. There's a lot of overlap, just like man and woman's made in the image of God. We bear the same exact essence when you get down to it. Right. But how a man lives and how a woman lives is very different. Like that's right. People say, well, it's just plumbing. Just plumbing. That's our whole body. Yeah. Right. Like we have different bones. Like if you can look at them and say that's a woman. That's a man. These are more angular, thicker bones. There's a more smooth bones. Like look at the size. Look at the pelvis. You look at how long we live, our hormones, our entire wiring. Right. It's very different. And so you go to something like 1 Timothy 2, and you're going to see Paul say, men. I want you praying. I don't want you angry. Women, I want you to give yourself to the service by coming in a modest way. Yeah. Why did he tell the men and the women different things? Yeah. Well, guys struggle with anger. Why? Because we have testosterone. Like the number, it's like most violent criminals, 70, 80% are male. Sure. It's because of our hormones make us more aggressive. Right. Why is he talking to women about modesty? Well, because women are beautiful, and that beauty can get twisted to be making yourself into a spectacle. Mm-hmm. And so what we don't need in a worship service and in a church is angry dudes. Right. That's all about their wrath, and immodest women. Both are a spectacle, both are a distraction, both are sins, but they're experienced and lived out differently between men and women. Yeah. All that stuff's throughout Scripture. Do men gossip? Sure. How often do you hear Paul warn men about gossip? Not very often. Women tend to develop a little quicker linguistically, sure. You take like a 3-year-old girl, she's like, please, sir, can I have some more? And then, my 3-year-old boy is like, cheese, please. Yeah, that's right. He's not stupid. He's just a boy. So he'll catch up. Right? That's right. And so women God has blessed them to be helpers. They knit together and cultivate, and a big part of that is language. That's one. Guys are really built to be super mission oriented in an A to B sort of way. Yeah. And so when guys talk, we have a very direct way of talking. Oh yeah. So if the room is cold, we say, "Hey man, this room's cold. Will you go change? Make it a little hotter, right?" Yep. And the woman will say, "Man, this room, I could sure use a blanket," or something like that. Right. It means the room's cold or whatever. She's going to be more indirect, generally speaking.
My wife and I are polar opposites. We're polar opposites, so we're always having the thermostat discussion. But I'm always much more direct, and she'll come in and say, "Did somebody? Do
you feel like it's a little?
Do you feel like it's a little colder? Is it just because warmer outside?
Would you like me to do something?" Right. So like when men are listening to a woman, they're listening for a punchline, and it'll drive us nuts. Yeah. Right. Like, what's the command? What are you asking me to do? Right. And so she's my wife would do this. And in my early marriage, I'd go like this. Right. Right. Or just really like an idiot. Like,
yeah, that's very helpful.
Yeah. What a woman's, did not.
Don't do that.
You're doing that thing your mother does, right? Don't do that.
No.
But what I slowly realized is that for a lot of women, it's contextual. They're sharing their experience. Like it's a circle. So men are like this, but women are circling down to the point. They're getting there. This is the way they communicate. It's their experience. You're sharing. They're pulling you into the world. It's wonderful with children. Pulling them into your world. It's what women do well.
Yeah.
When you look at one of the big ideas, and it's good to be a man, that we wanted to get across is sin is the marring of good things, almost always, right? The twisting of good things.
Right.
So like our aggressive instincts, one of the most highlighted things in Kendall is the line we have in there about there's nothing sinful, like in of itself of your aggressive instincts.
Right.
Right. If you're going to protect, you have to be aggressive. If you're going to provide, you have to be aggressive. If you're going to preside, you have to have definitely some assertiveness.
Sure.
Right. And women, this drives women nuts, but they'll scream at their kids. Right. Or our kids.
Yep.
And then we'll come out there and say, hey, stop it. And they'll stop right away. There's a difference in our presence and whatever. God's made us to have this sort of gravitas, what I talk about. So it's remember I was thinking through this as like gravitational force. And I was talking to my friend, I think it was David Talcott, who was at King's College and he's now at NSA. And David's like, oh, you should check out this guy, Chris Wiley, C.R. Wiley. And so I went and bought Chris's book, and he talked about Gravitas. I didn't know, public school educated here.
It's a man of the house.
Yeah, man of the house. I didn't know Gravitas was like this big idea of Roman virtue. So it's kind of the cumulative of all virtues together, what it produces in a man. So scripture would use the word like grave or serious.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's weight. It's a man of weight. So there's a guy that walks into a room, his presence is felt, right? Mm-hmm. And so for us, we get gravitas by pursuing godly character. You develop character by obeying God in the things that he's required of us.
First of all, I just want to say how grateful we are to our listening and viewing audience. The responses we've gotten to the Grimke Podcast have honestly been pretty overwhelming. To reach more folks, you know what you can do: like, subscribe, rate, comment, share. We certainly would appreciate it. Also, it might be that you have a topic suggestion and you'd love to hear us talk about something that's on your mind. You can go to grimke.org/topics. We would love to see those and potentially incorporate them into a future episode. Again, thanks so much for watching.
So men are supposed to be leading their households and all this sort of stuff. Now, what happens when all that washes away? Gender difference has been washed away. You grew up in broken households. I mean, so since we're all the same age, it was still pretty rare to have lots of divorce in your classmates in those first couple of grades, first, second, third grade, right? Maybe 5 or 6 families. Well, now it's like it's way more than that. It's very, very common.
Yeah.
And if there's not a divorce, a lot of times it's a sort of Brady Bunch blended family sort of situation. Yeah. So what happens when no one has good fathers? The father abdicated, the father's aggressive, and society is against you as a man, and all this sort of stuff. And the church is still working underneath ideas that are reflective of the world that those pastors grew up in, a world that's been washed away multiple times by all these different waves of feminism and technological societal change. What you get is a lot of what we called clueless bastards. And people got upset about that.
Okay.
But I thought the word bastard was helpful.
Sure.
It's a biblical word. You'll find it in the King James. It just means someone that grows up without a dad that acknowledges them by being married to their mother.
Yeah.
Right. So they don't have the inheritance rights. They're looked down on. They're a living example of their mother and father's indiscretion, lack of discipline, lack of commitment, all that sort of stuff.
Right. Say illegitimate.
Yeah, illegitimate. Right. So it's a shame is on it. Illegitimate doesn't carry the shame that young men feel.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. Bastard does.
Right.
The word's got sting to it. It's like the difference between homosexual and sodomite.
Right.
So like I'll say homosexual most of the time, but every once in a while I'll slip sodomite in there.
Sure.
So same way, like illegitimate, fatherless or whatever. But we found that these guys that I was talking to, good men that were trying really hard, were trying to overcome growing up in these broken homes and had a lot of shame, a lot of anger, and trying to figure it all out. And so that word was helpful. Clueless is when you have a son that you love and acknowledge, you give your life to him.
That's right.
Here, let me show you here's how you do a half Windsor, right? Here's how you change the oil. Here's how you shake a hand. I remember Gary Noppert was my youth pastor's husband. So I had a female youth pastor because I came up in the charismatic movement. I ran into him at a Kroger and I shook his hand and I was like a dead fish. He said, boy, that's a dead fish. Never shake another man's hand like that again.
Right.
And I haven't since. Right? He's like, let me show you. And you're supposed to know that. You're supposed to understand eye contact. You have to understand that someone's shifty eyes is not good.
Right.
Yep.
And
job of a dad. Teach us things.
These are things that are not curriculum. Right. They're not podcasts. They're not books. It's the presence of a father.
Oh, that's right.
Father's always doing it all the time. Right. He doesn't have a checklist he's necessarily going down.
That's right.
He's like teaching you as his father taught him. So man, it's very much a baton.
No, that's right.
And so what happens?
It's enculturated.
Yeah. It's like 20% taught, 80% caught.
That's right.
And that's part of the situation we find ourselves in is that 80% is really lacking. I don't care if you read my book a million times or listen to all these different podcasts on manhood. You have to have fathers.
That's right.
And so all that was kind of swirling in the water. And when I finally got around to doing the podcast, it turned into something very different. Okay. It wasn't kind of a rehash of Council of Biblical Manhood and Womanhood, which was never really my vibe to begin with.
Sure. It's a big book. I was scared from the start.
Big Blue.
Just
I read it and I was frustrated by it. I was like, this is not helpful at all. Like, yes, I was always pretty patriarchal.
Sure.
I think nature is, so it's pretty natural. And I'm like, who denies that men, like how many feminists are denying men and women complement each other? Like not very many. Now a little more so because things got crazier.
Yeah.
But like when you get to the masses, like it didn't really solve most problems at the time.
Right.
Now they're trying to rework it. And they like if you have a word complementarian, a word that if you spell, you'll win Scrabble. Right.
Yeah.
If you have a word like that and you have to add thick and thin to it.
Right.
Right. Something's not right.
Right.
You got to start adding like more and more adjectives to, I don't know how long this thing's going to get.
Might be a thin word.
Right. Might be a problem somewhere in there.
So I get it. They were trying to respond to an issue at the time and deal with it. And each of us have to respond in the time that we're at. But anyhow.
Some of that concept drift too was a little bit to the deluge of the moment.
Yes.
And so much of it's shifted. So, when I was reading that book, I remember I was very much still in the sponge stage.
Sure.
So I think I might have understood maybe half of it, just soaking it all up.
Yeah.
But even the milieu in which they were writing had certain assumptions that are far gone at this point.
It was moving even when they wrote it.
Yeah.
Like they wrote it as space and time, and things were still changing.
Yeah. We had Dr. Piper was in, was it last year?
End of last year.
Semesters. And during the Q&A, we were, he was speaking in that book. He said, well, because of the challenges today, they would restructure and build that from the foundations because of what was actually lacking and assumed at the time.
Early Piper is pretty patriarchal. If you listen to Piper on Complementarian, I'm not that far from him in my positions. And I don't want to get stuck on labels, really.
Right.
Like someone asked me what my position is, I just say biblical sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
We could argue about what that means.
Right. Oh, that's right. Open the book.
But I think what happened since then is that this androgyny really hit hard, and the interchangeability of the sexes and the mixing of the sexes, and kind of the ultimate manifestation of that's transgenderism.
Right.
And so anyway, to go back to the book, I started researching and writing on that stuff. And Em and I were running every day together, and we would run this 1 mile one way and hit this house and then turn back. And it was this, it was a mailbox, and it was the Goodman's house. And I'd always say, yeah, it's good to be a man. I was like, that's kind of
Goodman.
I like that. And I just, I wanted to lead with something that was positive about masculinity.
That's right.
What was hilarious is that's such a subversive title, only in a stupid age like ours.
That's right. Yeah.
Because there's a assumption that there's a war between the sexes, right? So to say it's good, so it's a zero-sum game in their head. Oh, if it's good to be a man, it must be bad to be a woman. Like, say, how so?
Right.
Right. Like God made man and woman in his image, and he said, it's good, it's very good.
Right.
So you are pulling in feminist assumptions, even in the way like, oh, wow, what an edgy title. I wasn't even going for that.
Mm-hmm.
I was going like, I didn't want to talk about what was wrong even with feminists.
Right.
Not that you could write books on that. And there's a need to deal with those compromises.
Some people have. Right.
But I wanted to talk about here's how to be a man. Like some of the pushback I got on the book is because they skipped the introduction, which said, look, we're not trying to tell you how to get the woman. We're not trying to tell you how to be a father or a husband. We're trying to tell you, like, here's the essence of manhood. And here's how I like to use the bike chain analogy, which is when your chain falls off your bike. This is back when people went outside.
Right.
So when the chain falls off the bike, you flip the bike over.
Right.
You put the chain on one of the gears and the teeth partly on the other one. And you turn the pedal and it pops on.
That's right.
And the idea is that sometimes when you're stuck, it's just taking that first step forward motion. Let's get people moving in the right direction. I'm not interested in answering every single question, every single problem. I think as you get moving, things will start to fall in place. What I've found is a lot of men are scared, right?
To start moving.
Well, they don't want to mess up.
Yeah, that's right.
So you need a checklist.
Right.
They want GPS instructions. And we told them, we're going to give you a compass and a topographical map. Right. So head that direction. Here's some of the landscape. You got to figure out how to navigate. Well, how do I do it? Well, get up closer and you'll start to figure it out, man. Like, sometimes you got to father yourself.
Yeah. Start pedaling.
And so that was the heart of the book. That was the heart of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend Non Tennant, we argued very strongly over the sons of God in Genesis 6. That's how we got to know each other.
Okay.
He's wrong. I'm right. And so I think we got wore out on talking about that at some point.
Sure,
and, But he was like reading on this stuff too. And he's a copy. He writes copy for a living. And so very helpful to a dyslexic brain like mine. So like I see something that apparently other people don't see. So, and that's why.
If the world's backwards, you kind of see everything perfectly.
So,
I mean, just to be honest,
the more backwards it gets.
I struggled with Greek, but aced Hebrew.
Yeah, Hebrew's great.
I really aced Hebrew. Greek, I was like, I hate this language, So, but so he and I started working together, and originally it was going to be like this really systematic theology on masculinity, and we had this long. The first version of the book was all about androgyny. I've kind of been obsessed with that idea since 1999 when I took a sociology class at Northern Kentucky University. They say it's the Harvard of Northern Kentucky, and no, they don't. We call it the No Knowledge College. But anyway, I had a sociology teacher who looked like an alien. She was like about as androgynous feminist you could get, clearly a lesbian, but a very profound thinker.
Right.
And she did this whole thing on androgyny. So to her, like androgyny was kind of good. And she gave all these examples of like David Bowie. Then there's this, I wish I could find this textbook. I've tried to find it for years. But there's this one page where it's this black bodybuilder all greased up. And this anthropologist showed a picture of it to this tribe. And the tribe said, that is a huge woman. Because they saw the big pectoral muscles. Right. They just thought it was like a big greased up. And so she was talking about how different people perceive things. And how this is good and sexuality is fluid. And how a lot of the companies that had made like perfumes or purses and stuff for women started to like, hey, we've saturated the women market, and they started to repurpose it for men, and how corporations even so all of it, like to me was like, this is fascinating. Yeah. And at the same time I'm reading the church fathers. And so I ended up becoming patriarchal by reading radical feminists and reading the church fathers. I just like reading, because the church fathers really, when they thought about redemption, a lot of times it was very physical for them. That comes across in Athanasius and all that. And the idea of justification by faith, you'll find it there. But it's like all that stuff's being clarified as God raises up faithful men. That's right. So that all kind of like coalesced into it's good to be a man. And slowly, as we talk to people, what I would do is I was serving in the PCA at a Presbyterian church. On my lunch breaks, I would just tweet out, any male follower that wants to talk about something, I'll give you my number, we'll talk. So I ended up talking to hundreds and hundreds of guys. Yeah. And one reason it's good to be a man sold very well is a lot of those guys ended up becoming high up. I've got friends at New York Times. I got friends really close to the White House, all over the place. And not because I tried to, I just opened up my time.
Sure.
And we'd talk and we'd pray together, and I'd listen to them. And instead of like just man up, having the sort of boomerish attitudes you can get at times, listening to their problems, and what if they're not crazy? Maybe they're exaggerating things and need someone to correct them. But what if the problems they're describing are real problems?
Yeah.
And it really shaped the book. And I think we started to zero in on their mindset, the things they needed to hear. So like later in the book, we talk a lot about how you got to be careful being around angry men, how you have to have the right sort of brotherhood. Yes, maybe you got a bad deal, but this is a situation that God has you in, and you have to be faithful. You can't let your past define you.
Yeah.
Or you can't let your past overwhelm the entire future. You have to still be faithful. And so we wrote that book to be timely, right? To meet the moment. And I think we also caught the wave right before the Manosphere blew up.
Yeah.
But a lot of the young guys I talked to then like went on to become big deals here and there.
Sure.
And so it's like awesome to see the book, the ministry, to help all these people. And I think what I learned through talking to a lot of those men is that men were deeply isolated. They didn't have lots of friends. And, I come from a broken background and all that. But one thing I have had really my entire life is lots of friends and lots of mentors.
Yeah.
And I have got friends that go back decades. Even now, I talk to these guys almost every week. We hang out. I've had mentors in every stage of my life.
Right.
And I thought, well, my dad was a non-Christian and I didn't have this. Well, I started to realize like, man, I actually, that is my advantage that I have on these guys. It's not my intellect or anything like that.
Sure.
It's that I grew up with a band of brothers. And I grew up with really good masculine mentors.
And a first generation Christian.
Yeah.
Right. You're to figure it out. Right.
And so these guys, though,
very isolated.
Because of the internet and all this sort of stuff that's happened and the breakdown of things that you can tell your kids, go out and play with the other kids.
Right.
But they're not outside. Right. They're not, they're online in their Discord chat or whatever, talking about things while they watch other people game or game themselves. So you have to find ways to facilitate that these days.
Yeah.
But anytime a new technology is introduced into the world, there's a generation that gets the brunt of it.
Yeah.
Before you figure out how to use it in a wise way. I actually think the Zoomers are adapting to that. I think that boomers see the AI of Will Smith like from 2 years ago when he's eating spaghetti. It's like fingers going through his head. They're like, did you see this thing that Will Smith did? It's so weird. That is not real. Okay. It looks so real. It doesn't look real. But now Zoomers see the rabbits jumping on the trampoline that went viral a couple they know that's AI.
Yeah.
So they're adapting to technology, but man, the millennial generation in particular really got the worst of everything. Really bad economic situation, but more importantly, I think the disruption of the relational marketplace or whatever you want to call messed them up. Absentee fathers, all these sorts of issues, and that's where there's a lot of rage in that. So it's good to help pull these guys out and show them how to build brotherhood and how just a little attention from someone that gives, if you want courageous men, you have to encourage them.
Sure.
Yeah. Right?
That's good.
Encourage, courageous. Same thing.
Right. Great.
You don't shame. It's like if a woman has a wife, or if a woman, has a husband that's conducting himself in a way that's not respectful, you can't disrespect him into becoming respectable.
No.
Just like if you have a woman who's not lovely, you can't be harsh with her and make her more lovable. It doesn't work that way. You want courageous men, you're going to have to encourage them. And these guys need discipline, but they already are frustrated. And when you tell some man up and they're like, I don't know how to be a man.
Yeah.
How do I be a man?
Help me.
Right? Like you tell me a couple things. And so then they'll start asking you for you could write it's good to be a man over and over again. And people would just keep buying it. They would, because they actually don't want to, they're too scared. People love, like, what's all your books on masculinity? how many books do you need on masculinity,
right.
man?
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Like, how many you want to read? Like, what are you trying to get over here?
Right.
You know, like, have you put all that stuff in practice or even half of that stuff into practice? And it's like, I just don't want to mess up. I want to get it all right. Failure is baked into the cake. That's how we learn.
Yeah, that's right.
It's part of the formula. But you just have to start going. So they're lonely. They need a brotherhood. They need fathers that can encourage them. And so I think the book it was at the right time, and through a lot of interesting kind of personal background, you know, we wrote it for an audience that was ready for it. We just beat before the Manosphere went super crazy with guys like Andrew Tate.
Yeah, interesting. What's interesting too is I always knew this, but I saw it when you were here. I mean, we've had rather in-depth theological conversations. We've talked about Peterson. We went to Athanasius, and we're talking about Athanasius' view of the incarnation and how it affected the atonement. Yesterday, we were talking about different Reformed confessions and ecclesial polity. A lot of times men speak, or pastors especially, speak on practical issues because they do not have a robust theology. Yeah. I know that's not you. I know you could talk and do at times talk very specifically about very in-depth theology. Why do you make the choice to be so very practical, especially when speaking to men?
Yeah. Well, I think the scripture's that way. Like I'd say, I mean, read Ephesians. He's going to lay out his theology. It's going to usually, you know, a lot of times in Colossians and Ephesians, it's front loaded.
That's right.
And then you get the practical stuff on the back end. But it's always like there's always a call to obedience, right? Mm-hmm. So all theology is practical. All practice is theological.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And the hardest part of being a pastor is thinking through the consequences of your theological commitments. Mm-hmm. Right. And you can kind of do that in reverse. You can look at your practice. What's the theology behind this? Why am I not sleeping? It's because I don't believe that God is a father that provides. Mm-hmm. Right. If I believe that God is a father who provides and protects me, I can sleep in the ship while the storm rages. Right?
That's good. Yeah.
Right. If I believe in God the Father, and I believe that he loves me and he affirms me in Christ and all that, and that the whole world could hate me, but God would love me. And that's the most important validation I can ever have. Who cares if someone trolls me online? So what? God loves me. So I think what we have to do is that the church has a lot of weight being put on it right now. Mm-hmm. Yeah. People like church should be fathering men. Actually, no, fathers should be fathering men. Right. Pastors are father-like, right, and fathers are pastor-like. But there's overlap in the sort of nurture we give, but there is the church, the state, and the family, and they overlap, but they're not synonymous. So there's a whole lot of pressure being put on us now to make up for broken families, and we can only do so much, or we'll abandon the particular call we have to our family, but also to the word and sacrament calling of a pastor. So one way we can help is we can't take everyone into our household. We can't teach everyone how to shake hands. Right. We can't. All that stuff matters. We can do some of that. Yeah. But one of the most helpful ways is telling men what to do. Mm-hmm. Right. Here's what the Bible says, and here's a few ways you can live it out. And so I'm just trying to get them moving, and let them see, like, hey, you know why I know you can be good at this is because God has made men to do things like this, and you are a man. Yeah. This is your destiny. This is your design. This is your purpose in this world. And, so I'll tell you a story. Yeah. So Cademan, my third born son, is he's a character. His older brothers are very physical. Cayman's more cerebral. Yeah. And I was telling him, like, son, you're starting to hunch over a little bit like a goblin, and it looks gross, and you're going to be ashamed of this, and you got to get involved in something. It can be tennis, it can be soccer, it can be whatever, but your brother does wrestling, and so it sure would make things logistically easier on us. And so he says, okay, Athanasius, my second born, who's a really good wrestler, gets Kay to agree. And then the morning of his first wrestling match, he doesn't want to go to the meet. So I'm like trying to pressure him. You're going to do this, Then I just say, look, I'll tell you what. You want to get a better computer. Here's what I'll do. If you finish the whole season, I'll go ahead and give you $500 and I'll give you $50 for every win you get. Right.
Yeah.
So now it was kind of a desperation move. I'm not saying you always do that, but that is what I did.
We've all been there.
Yeah. So we go to the meet. Okay. We go to the meet, and the first one, he just kind of stands there. He just beats the crap out of him.
Yeah.
Pins him right away. Then he's watching. So it's like you're going to have like 4 or 5 different teams you're going to go against. He's watching his teammates. He's starting to root them on. Mm-hmm. Like, get him. Yeah, you got it. Watches his brother go out there and win. And then the second one, he tries a little bit more. Right. And then by the third one, he's like, you know what? I think I can do this. So he doesn't win any that day. But by the end of that day, he wanted to be a wrestler. Not because of money, not because of a computer. He wanted to be part of the brothers. He wanted to have victory. He wanted to have dominion. He wanted to push himself. I'm not paying him a dime this year to go wrestle. He wants to do it. And he got wins in that season. Yep. And he actually is bringing his he's thinking through the right way to do the moves. He's got a very cerebral way at coming at it, which is good because wrestling is actually kind of you can't brute your way through it at the top. Yeah, at the top, it's very strategic.
Yep.
So here's the point. The point is, once men realize that you can do hard things, they're not scared anymore. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you shame them into it, they're just going to be quiet. They're not going to do stuff. Yeah. And so part of it's like, how do I get this guy just to do something? Yeah. And then he's like, oh, that wasn't that hard. Maybe even if they fail, they're like, oh, I almost succeeded. Well, that's exactly right, man.
That's right.
So I think trying to be practical. And then guys love theology. They love to argue too, right? And so one way to get theology is always through apologetics, right? That'll get guys going because they love a good argument.
That's right.
And it's why not argue about, Thomism versus presuppositionalism instead of
the Nephilim.
Yeah, the Nephilim. Well, or I don't know whether Bonds or McGuire, right? Like who knows? They both their heads got bigger. They had growth spurts in their late 30s. So I think we all can say something wasn't right there.
That's right.
But guys are going to talk about stuff like that. So I think practical theology and theological practice should be part of the ministry always. But when you have a group of people who have not been taught how to do things. This is a way. And so I like to use very down to earth, practical examples. You'll read guys like Lloyd-Jones tell you not to talk about yourself too much in your sermons.
Sure.
I'm very sympathetic to that. However, I do think people benefit from those anecdotes because they have a hard time translating the theoretical.
Absolutely.
So you always hear people, it annoys me, but can you explain more about that? Can you put some flesh on that? Mm-hmm. I was like, hey, you just gave me the bones. Put some flesh on that. You just write an article. Right? You write 1,500 words. Like, hey, can you write 1,500 more words? This was hard. That 1,500 words I wrote for you, that was really hard. Can you just chew on that? I started to realize that saying, can you put some flesh on it? Really what fathers are in a household is mothers and siblings. It's infleshed, it's entombed life. And they're like, what does it look like in real life? Yeah. Well, so I think pastors can use some anecdotes from their life. Don't make yourself always the hero. That's not good.
Sure.
Right. But to really illustrate how you overcame weaknesses through the conviction of the Holy Spirit, or failures go a long way. Like, I know what it's like to be angry. Yeah. Let me tell you some examples. Here's how God convicted me and led me out. We need a lot of that right now without being narcissists that make ministry about us and make us the standard, but also show them what this looked like in your own sanctification journey,
Yeah. Well, and the church milieu in a lot of ways it's kind of a two-step, or it's doubly difficult in a lot of ways because they haven't been very applicable in a fleshed way for many years.
Yes.
So
trust Jesus.
Yes. Yeah. Trust.
What should I do? Trust Jesus more. Well, you look at guys like Julian Division, and you look. He had all sorts of problems, but which played out. But probably he thought he wasn't a legalist. He was the worst of the legalists, and here's why. Everything comes down to a weird gospel mantra, right? So what do I do? We just got to trust God more.
Yeah.
Well, okay, when do I know I'm trusting God enough? So it like drives you back inside.
Yes.
And what we don't need is navel gazers who are constant, like it's Palestine would call it morbid introspection.
Right. Right.
Right. So it's like turtles all the way down. You the sin underneath the sin, underneath the sin, underneath the sin, underneath the sin, on and on and on.
That's right.
So what we need is more of a simple like call to repentance, and then say, God is giving you the Holy Spirit. You are to strive for holiness, not because that is your grounds on which you get into heaven in of itself, but it is the level that it's what springs from being born again.
That's right.
And God's given you the power to do that. And so go for it. I think that's the sort of stuff that we have to be doing right now is like studying our theology. One reason I think during the COVID that things like kind of heavy sacramentology and eschatology mattered. Or groups like Moscow, they had written a lot on stuff like that, on how to interact with a civil magistrate.
That's right.
Some of their Reconstructionist background, Rushdoony and all that sort of stuff. Rushdoony's not my favorite to say the least.
Sure.
But
it's a long read.
Yeah, he is. He knows how to turn a molehill into a mountain range. And
that's right.
But those guys rush there because they're like, how I think about the state matters. How I think about the end of all things, the apocalyptic nature of history and reality matters. And people went back to theology to say, what do I do?
That's right.
And that's what theology is supposed to do.
It's supposed to.
Like it's supposed to teach us who God is and what he requires of man. It's like basic confessional catechism sort of thing. Right? And so we have to teach our people theology, and then we have to gender the theology to some degree.
That's right.
Right. Like women.
Like the Bible does.
The Bible does it. And everyone knows that.
Yeah.
And we pretended like that wasn't true for a long time.
Yeah. Much of the church has only been exercising its pietistic muscles.
Yeah.
So it's almost atrophied in terms of all of these various areas of the Christian life that the Bible speaks to extensively.
Very much so.
Almost have been ignored. And so when upon hearing them the first time, it seems like you're the problem because you're going far beyond, obviously, what the Bible doesn't speak to. Yeah. And really, it's just been overlooked and forgotten. So it's just a lot of a recovery going on at this point.
Well, it's like where is it? Nahum. I believe it's Nahum 3, where God is like mocking the Egyptians and saying they'll be like women, like they're soldiers. Right? Is what God's misogynist, or are you wrong? You're wrong.
That's right.
Right. Women are all right. So another story. So we're a home birth type of household. Okay. We've done everything, but we've done 4 or 5 home birth. And my wife talked me into it. Men tend not to be into that sort of thing.
Sure.
I'm all the more not into it at this stage of life. I'm kind of done. But I remember we went to a Bradley class, which is like how men can support their wife and all this stuff during labor. And they made us watch a video of like these Amazonian women give birth. Right? They're like reaching down and pulling a baby out. And like all us guys are like slowly like covering our face. And we're like, is this wrong? Because these women are mostly naked.
Right.
And we're sitting there with our wives and it's like in this woman's basement.
Oh,
just remember this guy after we watch it, like she just pulls the baby out. Like she's getting the mail out of a mailbox. I don't know. It was like disturbing. The whole thing was, so this guy who had just gone back from Afghanistan, this would have been 2006.
Okay.
And she says, what do you guys think about this?
Oh, no.
And he says, I watched a friend of mine get hit by a mortar round and he turned into a swirl of bloody mist and eyeballs. And this is still the worst thing I've ever watched my entire life.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, here's why I'm talking about this. I think there's a reason you have midwives. Right, not mid-husbands. Right. Look, I'm there to protect you and take care of you. I was in the tub on the first one we did a water birth. Then I was beside the tub. Then I was watching Futurama, drinking wine and eating cheese, and she called me into the room. It's gross. I don't like being part of it.
Wow.
The sisters, they have childbirth. Right? It's just an intense thing. It's a sisterhood of women. They all go through it, and you'll never understand. Yeah, right, I won't.
Right.
But men we have war. We have battle that ties us together. That's unique. We all have the way we dip our toes into blood, and men are meant to go fight things in a way that women are. Right. If a woman runs from danger, she's doing her job. My job is to run towards it. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows that. No one's going to ever call a woman a coward for running from danger. If she leaves her kids behind, they will. Because her first job there is to nurture and protect those kids and take them with them and leave dad to take care of it. Yeah. Whether it's a bear, so that bear breaking into that house or whatever it is. And everyone knows that. And we just have to stop pretending like men and women are the same. Only in the church are you allowed to say something so stupid and get away with it and make it somehow a holy thing. We are different. That's a blessing. I thought we were all about diversity. What happened to diversity being good? Yeah, that's and I need the feminine in my life. That's my wife. That's my daughters. That's my mother. They need the masculine. That's their fathers and brothers and sons. That we need all that together. And the church has to start teaching that. We started with men because men have been the focal point of the attack of the last couple of years. I do think. I always tell people men were more hated by the culture. Women were more lied to. Okay. And so women have been told you can be everything. And so that's why when we look at the exploding addiction problem in women, it's not at parity with men. So women are abusing prescription drugs and alcohol at historic rates, and it's not keeping with men. So men have always been higher. Now the women are catching up and even surpassing them. Because why? Because they're told not only do you have to be a woman, you have to be a man. Right. You could be an astronaut and a mom and a lawyer and have everything you want. And if you don't, you're not like this woman. And so it's good to be a woman. One reason I didn't write that book is I knew this book would make people angry enough. When you tell people you've been lied to your entire life, right? And you've wasted some significant years. They don't take kindly to that, right? They have to process the rage. And so we started with men because when you tell someone you've been hated, let me tell you how God loves you and what you can do. You don't have to deny your manhood. It's a little easier to accomplish. Right. And so maybe we'll get around to a book at some point. I think Rebecca Merkel, her book, Even Exile, is probably the closest thing out there to it's good to be a man.
Yeah, it's a good book. Yeah, it's a really good book.
But we do need more of that for women right now. Yeah. Women are under attack that it's very aggressive. Yeah. So
we had Abigail Dodds and Tilly DeLahaye on a podcast and called the podcast that episode's Good to Be a Woman.
And that's awesome.
Because it is.
Those are good women too.
Right.
Yeah.
We gave you a shout out for it.
We did actually in the beginning of the episode. They're like, that's such a great title. Yeah. So I think Abigail said, I wish I named my book that. That's right.
Hey, I'd sign off on it. Yeah. She could probably, if anyone could do it, she could do it.
That's right. Now, one of the things that stands out about you is that you were very hopeful about both the church and young men. Yeah. So, and I think for you, they're kind of tied together. 100%. So talk some about that.
Yeah. The church is the body of Christ, right? Like Jesus is the head, the church is the body. Jesus doesn't fail. Bottom line. So let's say everyone's like, well, the reason I have hope is I'm post-mill. Right. And that's been a big talking point the last couple of years.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
Well, you should have hope because you belong to the church, and the church is Christ's body, and it's Christ's body filled with the Holy Spirit to accomplish a mission, and it will get that mission done. Yep. And so you can be someone like a John MacArthur, who's a historic pre-mill, who loves the church and have great confidence and do real things. I think rediscovering a love of the church, of the ecclesiological reality that God calls us to participate in. It's this family, and it's powerful, and it works because it's part of God's design, and God's design is irrevocable. It can't be stopped. And so I believe the church is unstoppable because Christ is unstoppable. And so he has called us to participate in his work. And so I think we can have low points, just like anyone does. You watch a boxing match, some of the best boxing matches, the guy is losing the first couple rounds and comes back, 12th round knockout, right? I remember watching David Tua. He was like this New Zealand sort of looking Samoan guy, and he was supposed to be the next Tyson. But I remember I've seen him fight 2 times Daniel Nicholson. He fought this guy. It was 2 minutes and 55 seconds. 12th round. Maybe 10th. I forget if it was a championship fight or not, but knocked him out. Yeah. Was losing the whole fight, knocked him out with 5 seconds. Right.
Amazing.
It was awesome. You're like, guys are going, oh my goodness. Like, had that guy just held on for a couple more seconds, he would have won.
That's right.
And, but anyway, that's the church does not lose, bottom line, because it's Christ. And I have confidence for that reason, because I believe in Jesus and he's plucked me from the darkness. And the way it happened was this big, tall, black Bearcat dude. He played for the Bearcats and got kicked out for doing cocaine or something. Yeah. And he preached the gospel. Never met this guy in my entire life. And I heard it and I got saved. Yeah. That was it. It was just God turned the lights on. Years later, I was in downtown Cincinnati and I saw him. And big, tall guy, I walked up to him, hey, you preach the gospel at Bright Church of God. And I got saved. And he looked at me, he said, isn't he wonderful? I said, yeah, man. He was like, well, God bless you. He walked off. That was it. That was it, yeah. Right? Like, that's good. So I believe that when we preach the gospel, that it is powerful. And one guy there got saved and he preached to me and I got saved. And I preached to a bunch of people and they got saved. And I think if we keep doing this, the church will do what it's made to do. It's great. Which is reclaim God's elect, pull them in. God calls them out through the preaching of the word. And the gospel will change men. They can't win. The feminists can't win. The homosexuals can't win. The pagans can't win. We will win. It's our destiny. It's what God's made us for. And so grace restores nature. We are made according to God's design, and we're getting a taste of what will be completed in the resurrection. You're born again. You start to actually understand your purpose and what your body's made for, what your strength's made for. Like, are you supposed to be angry? Yes. Anger is that emotion that says, I'm against that.
That's right.
We need some more angry men, right? I'm against that injustice. Mm-hmm. We just need to be angry and don't sin. Mm-hmm. And we need that aggression in this world. We got too many house cats, right? We need a few lions. And that's why I'm confident. That's what I believe in. And I've experienced it. And you may have too.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
grateful for the work you're doing in Batavia for that, starting a church.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, and it's been a pleasure hanging out with you. So thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah.
And we look forward to following your ministry.
God bless.
Thanks, man. Yeah.